Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Waffles RC. We are actually working on something today because I know that's what most people like from this channel. So we are going to start a new build. If you didn't watch the live, I reorganized the wall so that way everything has a place and the RV is up there. So that way it keeps all of this empty for now. We all know how that's going to wind up, because if you've been around this channel long enough, you know that this place is going to turn into a disaster zone. So give it a few hours, it'll be back to where it was. Also, I'm actually wearing all my merch today. So got hats, shirts, got a few other things on Etsy. You can check it out right here. Be greatly appreciated if you go and buy some, because that's what helps fund all these builds. And they're actually really cool, and the shirts are good quality, print's good quality, and they actually stand up to grinding, welding. You know, this one's got a bunch of stuff in it, but it's still perfectly fine. So yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, so what are we building? Well, trying to step out of my comfort zone of just crawlers slightly, but don't worry. Parts of this build will still be applicable to those of you that just want to do crawlers, because I am going to make another tube chassis. Kind of similar to the buggy. That's all tube chassis. Yep, right there. The Caprice, that's also somewhat tube chassis. At least it has a roll cage in it. And the roll cage, exo cage on the Cadillac and the white Jeep up there. If you follow along on this build, basically you'll be able to figure out how to either, one, make your own tube chassis, two, make an exo cage for your current vehicle, because I am going to be using a Lexan body. It's not going to be just a tube chassis, but underneath is a tube chassis. And unsurprised to anybody, I don't know how well detailed you can make that out, but it's another Toyota. I figured if I'm going to do all these Toyotas, I'm going to build pretty much every Toyota body that anybody makes. And I'm almost out of Toyota bodies. So with this, what I'm trying to make is basically a speed vehicle to see how fast can I get one of my homemade chassis to go on the street. But then I was also thinking about it last night, and I was like, I wonder if I could make this multi-purpose. So an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive speed vehicle, but then take out the front drive shaft, and now we have a drift vehicle. Who knows? So first I need to cut off all of this stuff so that we have just the body, because I need the insides to start building the roll cage essentially. So give me a second, we'll cut this out and we'll get right to bending some tube. Okay. Body is cut. So now we get to start the fabrication stuff. And as per usual, when it comes to any of the cages or roll bars or anything that I make, I use 3/16 solid rod. I got a bunch of it because it's going to be a full tube chassis. It's not going to be basic. We're having some fun with this. The first step that I know of, at least when it comes to making a roll cage, is figuring out your main hoop. Once you have your main hoop, then you build off of that. So for this particular body, we're going to go in the back of the cab all the way up and all the way back down, and that will give us our main hoop to then start building off of that, going to the front, down the window, and then we'll figure out stuff from there. So let me figure out how I want to do this. It's going to be a bit of complex bending. So let me get a piece of paper and we'll try and math this out somehow. Okay, so for those of you who are tuning in basically to learn how to build a roll cage, this is basically just the smaller condensed version of how to make a roll cage. You can use these same types of measurements essentially in a full-size car. Let's get to work. And yes, I will have to use the forbidden tape measure, because if I want it to be right, I need to actually measure it. And I've also learned to quit writing stuff on my workbench, because it takes about a year and a half, almost 2 years, for this stuff to come off, no matter how many suggestions you guys have given me of how to get it off. Okay, so because of this body being the way that it is, straight across here, then it's going to come down, but then it also has to have another bend to kick down from there. So there's going to be straight, bend, bend, straight, bend, bend. And then basically you'll take your measurements from there. Let's see if I can pretend like I know how to use this thing correctly. 5.5 inches for the top. No, that won't work. Oh, look. Measurements. Center on the page. 5.5. So there is our top bar. Now I'm going to measure the window for the second bend, essentially. 2 inches. Yeah. So we want to go 2 inches down. So now I need to measure at 2 inches the width. 7 inches. And why does that not seem right? 3 3/4. Oh, that's where I was wrong. Okay. So I need 7 inches. Be 3.5, because counting is hard. Now, does that make that 2 inches? Yes, it sure does. So we'll go from end to end. Draw us a happy little line. There is our basic measurement, at least for essentially a window. Main hoop. So now we need to come down, which I'm just going to go straight, so straight from there. So there is our main hoop. See, I did use a tape measure. I didn't use it correctly, or I didn't read it correctly, but now we have our main hoop. So now when you're making this and it's inside of the body, these measurements are going to be the outside of your tube. So you want to do all your measurements on the outside. Now, if you're doing an exo cage, say we were doing an exo cage on this, so this is how I'm trying to make it applicable to everybody. If you're doing an exo cage, you want to use your measurements like this, but measure from the inside of the tube. You have to take into consideration the thickness of the material that you're using for your measurements for the body that you're doing. So there's my happy free advice. So let me try to get to this to be something like this. All right, so I know it's a little difficult for you to see because I can't get the camera at really a different angle, but it came out a little smaller than I wanted, but we can work with it basically. So when you make your marks for the bend, you want to take into consideration 1, the radius, 2, the thickness of your material. Basically, you just want to do your bends a little earlier than your width because of the thickness of the material and your radius. So that's where I messed up a little bit, but I also didn't use a tape measure on any part of this other than the drawing. But the reason why I'm saying that's okay is because if we put it in here, it slides around. I'm not making this easy for the YouTube RC car. I don't know how well you can see that, but it fits inside of the body pretty much perfectly. The radiuses and the bends are about in the right places that I wanted them. So we're just going to run it. So now I need something to mount our main hoop to, which what I'm going to do for this particular build is 1/2 inch flat stock. So basically this will just weld directly to there, giving us something to once again build our roll cage off of. So it's not a full tube chassis, I guess you would say, because there is flat stock. But I don't feel like trying to... But do I? That is a question. Do I feel like doing full tube because I called this a tube chassis? Or do I want to put some flat stock on it? You know what? I called it a full tube chassis. Let's make it a full tube chassis. Now, what I want to do is create the bar that basically is going to go the length of the cab, which will give us our mounting points, one for the main hoop, two for the front bars that are going to come down to here, and hopefully everything else will mount to that from there. So real quick, easy measurement. Basically the way I'm going to do it is put it right here, put my thumb right here, and say yes, that's where I want to cut it. And then I'll cut two of those. So now I have two of those. Well, I have one, but I'm going to use this one to cut out the second one, which will give me the other side. Loud noises. I like that. Take this, put her there, draw a line, make the cut. Sure. There you go. Two main rails. So now I have to weld these up. That'll be interestingly fun, but we'll make it work. All right, so I welded the side bars on, and as you can see, I did those as well, just to keep it from being all floppy. But what this equates to is, so I got it to go exactly where I wanted it to. This is the length that I wanted, because I do have to take into consideration that, you know, tires are going to have to be here for turning and stuff. And like I have said in the past, and how I will continue to say it for all of my builds, and for anybody who's following along or trying this for their first time, or just in general trying to do stuff like this, are the welds pretty? No. Are they going to be under a body? Yeah. Doesn't matter. At least with this particular build, it doesn't entirely matter. But even my other ones where you can see the welds, are they holding? Yes. Do they look good? No. Do I care? Also no. Let's continue. What I'm going to do now is the bars that go along the top, down the windshield, and down to our, what I'm going to call the base plate. So just got to make two bends, length of the windshield, length of the cab, straight down, and then we'll go from there. Oh, by the way, if you're using a Lexan body and you're grinding and welding, keep this away from it. Ask me how I know. I may or may not have burnt holes in other RCs before because I didn't think of that. That plastic and hot stuff don't go well. Also, don't put a Lexan body on top of something that you just welded. Once again, ask me how I know. Let's make some bars. Here are the bars. They're kicked in a little bit because, well, I had to. And there we are. So now, for strength, as if this isn't strong enough, I'm going to put a bar right across here, and then across the back, and then essentially the cab portion will be done. For now. Not completely. I still have to figure out what transmission I want to run in this thing, because you'll see in a little bit part of the drivetrain that I chose to use with this, so it may get a little cramped quarters. Trying to get the frame mostly put together, maybe the rear suspension in this video, and then from there I'll have a better idea of what transmission I want to use, because remember, this thing's going to hopefully go fast. So I need to get the right transmission, and it is going to be four-wheel drive. Transmission, transfer case, however we're going to figure that out, we will figure it out. Let me just add these bars real quick to complete this, and we'll move on to the next step that I have planned for the cage and the body. there is basically the U shape, the part that is going to sit in the bed. I added these for a little bit of strength for the time being. They'll probably stay there as well. Just didn't want this all floppy on a tack weld, basically. Now, if you are a fellow do it at home, build your own RC kind of person, which I would assume you are because you're watching this channel, don't be afraid to make your own jigs, essentially. So I needed this bar that goes for the bed at a specific height. I marked it where it needed to be inside of the cab, had this laying in the bed, but I needed to hold it up. So obviously I don't have any type of jig system. So don't be afraid to make your own. This is my level that you have seen me use and some scrap metal. And that is how I held that up. Now that is what I like to call precision. It worked, honestly. It may not be the prettiest thing, but don't be afraid to make your own stuff. And just use painter's tape, because once you're done with it, there you go. Scrap metal's still good, and my level is still good. So now I don't need that anymore. So painter's tape is cheap. Full-on custom-built jigs are not. But yeah, that is the type of precision measuring system that you get here at Waffles RC. So I can now put my hand on it, and we take our body, put it in place. There you go. Oh, you can't see it. There you go. It is all inside exactly where I wanted it to be. So since I want the bed cut out of this thing, I'm going to go through the very fun process of trying to cut this as straight as possible and get rid of that, and then see how floppy the body is. We're gonna find out, aren't we? Well, I took my time and I tried my best. I can only do so much, especially inside of a cavernous area with body scissors. The next step that I want to do, or that I have to do, is now I got the open bed. But what I need is axles, because I need to do the control arms and get the axle mounted in there so then I can work on the suspension, which I'm going to get to that. But now most speed vehicles that you see are all independent, front and rear. All the ones that go the fastest, they are independent front and rear suspension. But I'm me. Now I don't want to buy just some random chassis and slap this body on top of it and say, hey, look how fast it can go. No, I'm going to see how fast we can make crawler axles go. And not just crawler axles, some of the cheapest that I found on Amazon. I don't know how long these are for the world with what I'm attempting to do, but we're going to try. So really the only criteria that I had for the axles was I wanted straight axles, not portals, because portals usually have another gear reduction in it, and I don't want gear reduction, I want speed. Not all crawler axles have gear reduction in the portals. It's usually just a 1-to-1, so you don't actually gain anything. But some of the really good ones, I say really good ones, but some of the really good ones do have a gear reduction, just gives you a bit slower. But I don't want that. Like I just said, here's our straight rear axle, and we have to get it in here. But I have to attach it to now a tube chassis, which is where that flat stock's going to come in. So it all works out because I need a flat spot to mount the control arms to. What I need to do is essentially find my center line for the rear axle inside of this rear wheel arch. Oh, and by the way, cutting this out, it actually didn't lose a lot. I left this lip right here, so it actually kept its strength pretty well. It's still a Lexan body. It's a little flimsier, but not when you do that. Now it's perfectly fine. This is just decoration over the functions. I will find where I want my center line and then attempt to make some shorter but still functional control arms. So I'm going to do triangulated front and rear for the control arms, so that way I don't have to use a track bar or anything like that. Let me kind of figure this out, and I'll bring you back most likely in probably 2 hours for me when I have this rear axle mounted in here somehow. All right, so it's been a couple hours and I got carried away. Yeah, so that's a little overly complicated, but the axle is in there and it moves. The reason why it's so complicated was I needed a spot for the drive shaft to go through, and those bolts won't be there on final assembly. They're just there to hold everything in. So now it's time for the actually complicated part. I know, right? If that wasn't complicated enough, now I want to try cantilever suspension. I think it's going to look cool. I don't know how well it's going to function, but we're going for aesthetically pleasing more than functionality. Don't really have to worry about inboard weight or keeping the weight low down or travel, or I don't have to worry about any of that. I just want to try it. Let's get started trying to make a cantilever suspension. I've been Googling a bunch of stuff, so hopefully this will turn out how I think it will. Before I get too deep into this, like I know I'm going to do, let's quickly explain the theory of cantilever suspension. Also, do feel free to roast me in the comments if I am incorrect, because nobody's perfect and it helps the algorithm, so thank you. The whole idea is that the shock or the coilover is going to sit like this. As the suspension travels, there's going to be a piece right here, haven't figured that out yet, but that piece right there will be hinged in the middle, so as the axle goes down, the shock will come out. And then same thing under compression. So that is the whole idea. Now I have to figure out how to make said piece to connect here, which does require geometry from what I've read, and I'm not good at geometry, so we're gonna guess and hope something works. This is the whole point of trying something new, at least for me. I want to try something new. Cantilever suspension, I've never done it before. Obviously, gonna be about 5 seconds in the future for you, but I'm gonna go away and figure out something that works for this. All right, some time has passed, as we can tell. Street lights on, but as you can see here, I haven't made the tabs for this yet because I got to figure out ride height, but it is functional, and it was not easy because geometry is hard. This is how you learn things. Gotta try new things, figure it out. I'm trying to figure this out. That's really all the best that I can do. And the real trick of this is that I've figured out how to do the back. I wanted to do this to the front too, but I've just spent probably 3 hours just on this. But now I know how to do it. So there's that. The other issue that is possibly going to come up is that I don't have tires, and I don't know if this is going to run into it. Yeah, there's that too. Still debating on which tires I want to go with, but it is working for the most part. A lot of fine tuning. I have made the other side mostly. So this is not the first variation. There have been many. So I just gave up on trying to do both, and I just did one. Now, tomorrow, I'll finish that up. It'll be done. I'll do it off camera, but you see the principle, because I'm tired and I have other stuff to do tomorrow. All right, so ignore everything that Mike from last night said. One thing you'll learn about me, I don't like leaving projects half done. And I didn't want to leave you guys on a cliffhanger of seeing one done. So here it is. And yes, I cleaned off the bench as well, so that way when we do the live today, everything's good. But we have both of them on there as we go up and down, up and down. Now, there is still fine tuning to do, just like always. So I got fine tuning to do, finish welding. I'm going to round cantilever arms. I'm going to round them off, make them look a little nicer, maybe drill some holes in them. Just once again, aesthetics. So these are not exactly how they're going to stay. I have not mounted the end because I do need to figure out ride height, which all purely depends on the tires that I get. I think I found the right tires last night, that's further down the road, and I'm out of money. So speaking of which, if you go to right here and grab some merch like I was wearing yesterday, it'd be greatly appreciated. All of that goes towards building these things. So next week we will start working on the front part of this thing. I'm debating whether I want to do cantilever on the front, or I may try something a little different. I don't know, or I may just do it normal. I have all week to think about it. Made really good progress just mostly in one day. I just had to weld everything over here to mount it up. I'd say that's pretty good progress, honestly. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. We will be back next week and hopefully have both axles on this thing to then figure out transmission and batteries. Once again, building it, not knowing where to put a battery. That's always the last thing on the plan. All right, thank you guys. We'll see you next week.